Hello friends, in this video tutorial we are going to talk about form. Yes, we are going to talk about form in HTML. How to write a code for filling of forms. Forms are used to collect data, and there is a whole lot of ways we can collect data in form. We can collect text, a write-up, okay. We can collect by you checking some data we have, that is checkbox, where you have English, mathematics, science. You can check more than one. We have a radio where you just pick between one from the list. We have a kind of male or female, high or low, risky, not risky, and easy, where you choose one option from a whole bunch of options. We have a select box, some people call it drop down box. We have file where you upload file. We have where we capture something and hide it, nobody is seeing it, but we are supplying the data. We have buttons, and we have submit button or reset button as well. So in this video tutorial, it's going to be a little bit lengthy because we are going to cover everything about form in this video tutorial. Okay, let's start with text input. Okay, text input. I will be making some notes here. In text input, we have three types of text input. We have the one we call single line. Okay, this is a kind of form where you just put your first name or second name. They are always in one single line, and you are not expected to fill too much lengthy text. We have the one we call multi-line. Okay, this multi-line is the one where you start writing a letter or a whole lot of things. It looks like a notepad where you can write in more than one line. And we have the one of password. Okay, this one actually we are equally capturing text, but this time around in form of password, whereby the user are not seeing what they are typing, but they know that they are typing something. And this also follow the same pattern of the single line. Okay, let's proceed with this text input. Once we are done with this, we'll move with checkbox and a whole lot of them. Okay, let me open my Visual Studio Code. Let me create a new file. I will call it form.html. Okay, the usual thing, HTML version 5, the title, I'll call the title form. Okay, then here let me just use head 1. Let me call it form in HTML. Okay, let me align this at the center. I do align center. Okay, so in form we normally start with this tag form, but in HTML like this, whether you write this tag or not, your code will show. But actually, if you want to submit it using JavaScript or anything, I don't think that can happen. If you didn't use this, let me pause this and okay, I just want to hide this from the screen so that it will not be blocking some codes. Okay, so as I was saying, this is the form tag. Okay, this form tag makes use of two attributes mostly. We have the one of action, we have the one of method. Okay, when you are learning back end, this is where you will know the function of this, but this shows the location where you want to submit the form, and this shows the method you want to use. Okay, we have four types of method: post, or you use get, or you use put, or you use delete. Okay, delete. Okay, but I will not be explaining it for now. It's something for the back end guys. Then action shows the where you want to submit it. It can be at contact .html or .php or wherever you want to submit this form. Okay, so this tag is what we normally use, but even if you didn't use this tag, your form will show, but some of the operation that should be performed should not be working. So it is ideal that before you start writing any form, make sure you have this form tag before you start. Okay, back to what we are doing here. We say we are talking about text input. The first text input is the one of single line. Like I said, this is the one used to capture your first name, middle name, or last name. So to do this, we have to start writing this single tag known as input. Okay, let me just write it from the beginning. We have this input. Input tag is this tag like this, but we have to tell him the type of input. We now say input type is equals to text. Okay, when we say it is text, we are telling him capture only text, right? So let me run this code now. I open my form, reveal it in Explorer, then I run this form.html. Okay, you see I have this form here, text. You see as I'm typing, it's collecting text, right? Okay, now we have an attribute here known as placeholder. Okay, placeholder is where you tell your user what you want them to enter here. I can say enter your name. Okay, let me run this code again. You see I have enter your name inside this, but actually this is not a data. It's just a placeholder telling you, look at what I want you to do here. Once you start typing, this placeholder disappears. Okay, some people prefer writing their placeholder or their label here. Maybe they will say name, something like this. Okay, then I will copy this, paste. Okay, this is enter your first name, enter your first name, enter your middle name, enter your last name. Okay, so you see, let me just bring this thing down like this. You see I have this name, enter your first name, enter your middle name and last name. Let me run this code. You see what we have? Name. Here I'm telling you what I need here, and what I need there. So you put your first name here, put your middle name here, put your last name here. Okay, this is name. Okay, so that is the attribute known as placeholder. You can still break it. You can still use break line. Okay, if I break line, you will see that all of them will line like this, starting from where I break line. You see that this form actually is not looking fine. That's the handwork of CSS. CSS is what we are going to use to make it look very sweet and beautiful. For now, learn the basic, how to put form, how to create form. Okay, when we now learn CSS, we now use it to beautify it. Okay, let me not put break line. I remove them. Okay, this is for the single line test. This single line test, actually there are a whole lot of them. Okay, I don't even really remember where to start and where to stop. Okay, we have the one of number. Number is still a single line test. When I say number here, if I refresh, remember this first one is the one that has number. You see, I cannot put text but only number. It is only number. Okay, let me say okay, let me do something like this. Let me call this test. Okay, let me break line. Let me say phone. say input type, let me say number. Okay, I will say placeholder. Okay, enter your phone number as my placeholder. Okay, this is for the input type number. Let me break line again. We have the one of email. Okay, we say input, we just write email, and I say placeholder, enter your email address. Okay, I break line. We have the one of password. Okay, let me call it password. Input type, we now call the type password. Let me say placeholder, password. Okay, let me put another one, input type. Let me call this password again. Let me say the placeholder is enter password again. A kind of confirm password. Okay, let me just write it confirm password. Confirm password, right? Okay, let me break a line again. In this stay single tag, we have the one we call URL. Okay, we use it to enter only a link. I'll now say input type. Let me just write input. Okay, select it from the list so that Visual Studio Code will help me. Let me call it URL. Okay, placeholder should be enter your website. Okay, let me still break line. We have the one of date. Okay, let me call it date of birth. Input type here now is date. And I say placeholder, right? Supposed to let me say date. Okay, so let me break a line again. Okay, here we have the one for text, okay, which is for the first name, middle name, last name, the one for phone number, the one for email, the one for password and confirm password, the one for website, and the one for date, which is date of birth. Okay, you can actually pause this video and go through this code if you are confused. Okay, coming back to test it, I now refresh. You see a whole lot of things we have. You can organize this very well. Remember, this tutorial is actually to teach. So this is the first name. Let me say first name is Paul, the middle name is Mike, and the last name is John. Okay, this is Mike. Okay, the phone number, you see, if I try to type alphabet, it will not work unless I type E, and this E will think that I'm trying to write a exponential or something like that, but it can accept only a number because the input type is number. Yes, the input type is number. Now what about the one for email? You know that email combines alphabets at you know as email used to go, right? So this is an email, but if I write something that is not an email, it will still accept it, but whenever I want to submit, it will tell me that what I wrote here is not an email. Now what about password? When I type with password, you see what is showing me? Yeah, but I know that I'm typing something, but actually I'm not saying what I am typing. That is the one for password. What about website? Website is talking about you entering your link. Now you see what I did here is not a link. If I want to submit, it will now tell me that I didn't enter a link. What about date of birth? Notice that date of birth doesn't make use of placeholder. Yes, we have placeholder here, but input type date doesn't make use of it, because instead of displaying you the placeholder, it uses this place to tell you how you want the format to be. It says month comes first, day comes first, year comes first. You can start entering it here by writing the month, which should be not more than 12. Okay, maybe you write the month 12, day can go to 23, year 2021, or you can come here, click on this icon and select the date. If you say today's date, just find today's date and pick it, it will show. Okay, so look at the year here, which is not correct. You can clean everything here, clean this. Okay, I can just come, pick any date, it will load, or I can be choosing type month, type day, and type the year. Right? Okay, let's test whether this data is working. How do we test it? The only way we can test it is by creating a submit button. So let's try to submit and see what actually will happen. Okay, coming back to my code, after breaking line here, I'll just write my submit button. There are two ways we place button. Okay, I know I'm trying to jump, but I want us to use it to test what we have, because here this button should be the last one, but let me talk about it now so that we can be able to use it to test this single line test input. Remember, we are still handling this and this. We have not really come for this. Okay, so there's a whole lot of things to learn in form. So let me put a submit button. Let's see how this goes. So in submit button, we can do like this. We can use this input, then we call this type now submit. Okay, we'll now give it a value. Value shows what will be inside this. Let me say send. Okay, if I come back to my code and refresh, you see that this thing will show me a submit button. A submit button like this. You see I have a submit button, right? Or I can do it with this method. Let me clean this one. I can use this method, button tag. It's a double tag. Inside it now we'll do send. Then I will come here as an attribute. I will type and the type of this button is submit. Right? So this equally will show me the same result. You see the same result, submit. Or let me call this send data. Okay, or register, whatever thing you think of. Okay, you see that two of them are the same thing, but ideally I prefer using this, right? The reason why I prefer using this is that I can easily put whatever thing I want it to be in the button. If I really want to use an icon, or if I want to bold this, I can easily do it. For instance, now let me just write the two so that you see the reason why I prefer this to the other one. If I do this input type submit, then I say the value is let me call it send, right? Then I do this one, button register, let me call this register, then still put the input type submit. The reason why I prefer this one to this is because here I can bold this register, but I cannot bold this send. I can equally underline it, italize it, or whatever, because they are double tag. I can easily come here and use my bold tag and say register. This will be bold. Okay, let me come back to my code. See that my register is bold, but I cannot bold this, right? Okay, so because this one is more scalable, I can equally do a kind of bold, as we do it, italize, underline, bring this down like this, then I will say register. You see, I cannot actually do this here. Okay, that's why I prefer using this to this. So let's check our code. You see what we have, right? So coming back to this place now, let me just remove this, and remove this. So whenever you see this, the code is still correct, but I prefer using this. Now let's test our code. Okay, coming back to my code, I put a first name, put a middle name, put a last name, put a phone number, put this. Remember, this thing is not actually an email. Then put a password, confirm password, put this. Remember, this is not actually a link. Then select a date. Now if I want to submit, look at what happened. You see, it comes here telling me that I have to use @ in the email address. Yes, computer really understand that what it is needed here is an email address, so I have to make it an email for it to work. Okay, let me submit again. You see the one of URL I have shown, it says enter a URL, telling me that what I did here is not a URL, I just write something, so I have to make it a URL. Let me try to use .com like this. It says no, because URL start with HTTP like this. This is how we write link. See, if I submit this now, it refreshes, meaning that it has submit. Assuming that in the action that we write where we want this to submit, you see that it will want to go to that place to submit. Okay, so that's it. You see that this thing submitted successfully. That's why you are not seeing any data here again, or they actually did not submit anywhere because we have not really indicated where we want it to be submitted. So you see that we now use this to validate this, to tell you that actually this requires an email, this requires a URL or a website link. Okay, there are another thing we are looking for here. What about I write a first name, middle name, last name? I didn't write phone number, I write an email address. I write a password, confirm password. I write a link. I set a date. You will see that if I submit, the form will submit. That's why I didn't write phone number. Let me do it. See that the form have actually submitted. So what about if you want to make this phone number mandatory, that you must fill this phone number before you submit? How are we going to do it? So let's dig. There is an attribute known as required. So anyone you want it to be a must, you want it to be required. Anyone that you want to make sure that user must submit, must pull a form, must input it, or must fill it before they can submit, just write required beside it. Okay, required. So here I say that email is required, meaning you can submit other form empty, but you see this email, you must submit it. Okay, before I try it, let me remove this required, right? If I come to this and submit, if I want to submit, watch this. you will see that this thing will try to submit. Let me click. You see, actually it has submitted. Empty form. But when I put required for email now, something like this, so that if I want to submit, email will be required. Let me refresh the code. Okay, let me submit now. You see, it says please fill out this field, telling me that I must fill email before I submit. Okay, so what about if I want all of them to be required? What do? I will just put this required to each and every one of them. Let me say first name is required, middle name you are required, last name is required, phone number is required, okay, password is required, confirm password is also required. Okay, so let me go back here and let me just submit. It will say required. Okay, let me refresh this first. Submit. Says first name is required, please fill out this form. Let me just fill this form. If I submit again, it will tell me that this one is required, right? Let me click. You see, telling me that it is required. I fill it. Submit again. Says that all of them are kind of mandating me to write something. Now phone number I write. Now what about email? Let me just write Dragon. It will still come back to email and tell me put an email address. Okay, when I put now, it will now move to password. Password is required. I type anything, confirm. I type anything, websites. If I type anything, it will say enter a URL. Okay, so let me make it a URL. What about date? Is submitted. Do I do date required? Okay, you can see date is not required, website is not required. No wonder the form is submitted. Okay, let me do date required. Okay, so let me retry this again. Let me just go back a bit. Refresh. Okay, see, this is required. Okay, phone number, I just write it. Remove this. Just write anything as an email. Password. URL. Okay, let me submit without entering URL. You see, date is required. I fill out the date, but URL is not required. You see, URL, nothing is here to tell me that it is required. So if I submit this, it will submit. Okay, that is the function of required. Okay, what about we want to fill some form? Maybe we have a kind of registration number. Registration number, input. Okay, this registration number, I want it to be test. Okay, now you see that by default, let me break line first. Let me break line here. Okay, by default, user shouldn't be the one to put registration number. So you want to be the one to put our registration number. How are we going to do it? We do something like this. Value. Okay, value. Maybe let's say the person registration number is HTML 225567. So this value determines what will be inside this form, right? That is the function of value. We are filling the form for the guy. You see now the value now shows here, and the user can add or remove. Okay, but anytime we refresh, the value comes in again. So this is the value. We use this attribute to fill the form for the user. Maybe for this name, if you want to fill a name for this guy, we can use this value as well. Let's say the value, your name is Moses. Now once we enter this value, our computer will automatically type this inside this first name, and this placeholder will go since we have a value, right? Okay, let me refresh now. You see I have Moses, but this Moses is really a data being typed in by the computer because we are giving him a command to value this as Moses, to put the data here as Moses, which we can alter, right, or clean them. Assuming we clean out this, you see placeholder will show. Okay, when we refresh again, it will fill it with Moses because we put the value here, Moses. So I just want to tell you that the function of value is to queue in. So there are forms that we are setting up. You want to queue in some data for the user, you use value. What about you use the value and you don't want the user to edit it? For example, registration number. You know, computer automatically generates registration number for a user, but user can see it, but they cannot touch it. You can use this disabled. This disabled will make user not to tamper this, right? Let me refresh. We have this now. A user cannot do anything, but the user can see it. The user can copy it, but the user cannot alter it. We can equally use this attribute to do the same thing, known as read only. That's read only, don't alter. A user can read this, but he cannot alter it. Coming back to this place now, you see a user can copy it, but the user cannot type anything. The user cannot edit it. So you may want to ask the question, what is the difference between read only and disabled? That's a very nice question if that thought is coming to your mind. The difference between read only and disabled is that read only, whenever I'm submitting this data, this value will be submitted. Okay, but in disabled, this form is disabled completely and this data will not be submitted. So we use read only when we want to show you the data and we don't need to submit it because maybe we are pulling it already from the database. We don't want you to edit, we don't want you to resubmit. We use disabled. But what about we just generated the data for you and we have not actually submitted it to the database? That's the time we use read only, so that you can only read it, then when you submit, this will be submitted for you and you cannot alter it. But assuming we have already called it from the database, we can use disabled, or we can use normal tag to display it for you. So you have to know about read only and equally know about disabled, so that based on what you are doing, you will not know the right one to use. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, there's another attribute that I want to talk about. This attribute is known as size. Let me just give an example here. Let me come after the page number and the name. Let me just put this. Let me say gender. Okay. Let me say input type is text. Okay. Let me just leave it like this and break line here. Okay. I refresh this again. Okay. Let me just double this break line so that this thing will look a little bit nice to the eye. Press here. Yes, I'm just doubling the break line so that there will be a little space between them. When we started writing CSS, we now make it look more beautiful. Okay, let me shift this gender from here. Okay, put it here. Okay, now let me say gender is male. You see that we have a whole lot of space here. What about we want to make this text box to be very small so that we do not unnecessarily give big space here? How do we do it? We just use this size, right? The size tag will now come to this gender and says size. Since we know that female is 6 characters, male is 4 characters, we can say size 8. Just show us a size that can contain 8 characters. If I refresh, you see that this gender is now small. When I say 1, 2, okay, let me use capital letter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, we make a space for something that will contain 8 characters. The more I write, it will be going inside here, as you can see. Okay, but the space is just for 8 characters. So the function of this size is to kind of beautify our form, or just to give you options, and you need to know about all these options so that any one you want to use, you use it. You are looking for a space, you can use the size to minimize and get more space for other form, right? Okay. Or you are writing age, you can use size 3 so that the form will be very smaller. And once you are coding, you look at your design and make sure that your design is actually making sense. What about we have something very long? Okay, let me say we want to do something like this. Small bio. Okay, small bio. We now say input type is text. We now say placeholder supposed to tell us a little about yourself. Okay, let me just break line here. Okay, scroll down here. Okay, let me run this code now. Okay, you notice that this is so small for somebody to tell us small bio. Okay, and we want to use a single line text. Okay, we can now use size again and make it very big. We can now come here and say as an attribute size, let me say equals to 200. Okay, see what will happen. So that this thing is very big now. 200 has even passed it because it's showing me a space that will contain 200 characters without scrolling. Okay, it's very big, so let me reduce it to 100. Okay, you see what we have. This can contain 100 characters. Okay, this is for the attribute size. Let's look into the other attribute. Okay, the other attribute that we want to look into is the one known as maximum length. For example, we want you to enter a phone number, and you know that a Nigerian phone number is not more than 11 numbers. And you see this, somebody can enter. Okay, let me just say size. Let me just increase this size. Where is the phone number? Okay, this is the phone number, right? Let me say size is equals to 15. So it will be very long. It will be longer than this. Okay, I have this. Okay, let me make it 20. Don't mind this sheet I just opened now. Let me say the size is 20. Fresh. Okay. We already have more than 20, right? That's why we are not seeing any difference. Okay, let me say the size is 78. Okay, this is test number, no wonder it's not showing, right? But in CSS we can increase it. Let me just write a simple small CSS here. But when we learn it, let me say width is equals to 150 ps. Okay, with this width now in CSS, let me close this sheet. If I refresh, see that the width has already taken effect. Okay, let me say the width, let me say I want the width to be 250 ps. Testing my code again, you see the width. So CSS actually can do whatever thing HTML cannot finish. We use it to beautify our website. So when we learn CSS, you will learn more about this. Okay, but let me still leave it so that we can show you what I want to talk. I want to actually talk about the maximum length. Okay, let me say max length, which is used to determine the number of characters that can be maximum here. So let me say maximum length is 7. It simply means that this number I cannot put more than 7 characters or 7 numbers in this text box. Okay, let me come again, refresh. So if I do this now, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, I cannot add more. Okay, something is wrong somewhere, because maximum length don't supposed to allow me add more. Let me see where I'm making mistake. Let me check very well. Okay, I don't actually see something wrong with this. Is it because the input type is number? Okay, let me put this maximum length here. Let me put it in this one of gender. Let me say the maximum length here is 4. Okay, let me say the maximum length is 4. Let me try the code again. I refresh. I put 1 2 3 4. You see, as I type it, nothing is showing. So I say the maximum length of this is 4 characters. But actually the maximum length is not working for numbers, although we know how we calculate it with numbers. Okay, actually it's working. That time I did not actually refresh the page. Okay, see, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. See, okay, it's not working. So we can use CSS to do it, and equally use JavaScript to calculate it, to know when you have built more than or not. But I think this is supposed to work. Let me check. Okay, back to my code. Let me just put this maximum length again and check. It should work. It should work. Let me just put it 7. Save. Okay, let me just refresh this page again. This maximum length should work. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Oh, okay, I will do more research on it to see why it's not working, because I know I have written a code where I determine the number of characters will be in a number with this input type number, and I'm very sure of it. Okay, before that, let's talk about the minimum. Okay, let's talk about the minimum. Minimum, normally we use it for password. We tell you don't put less than this and not more than this. Okay, So let me go to the password. The first password, let me say the minimum length you can put here is 5. You don't put less than 5 for us, and the maximum is 10. Okay, you don't put more than 10 for us. Okay, let me go back to the code. I refresh. Okay, if I submit, it will say enter your middle name. I did this, type something here, type something here, type something here. Okay, don't mind what I'm doing. Okay, let me just put a link here, say HTTP, which is the link. Okay, let me select a date. Okay, I know why I didn't put anything here, because this is where we actually put the minimum and the maximum. Okay, let me submit. It says enter an email. Okay, .com. Okay, I have made it an email. Let me submit again. So enter a password. Let me use 1, 2. Remember, we said the maximum will be 5. It says please lengthen this text to 5 characters or more. Okay, let me submit again. It says or more. You are currently using 3. Okay, let me make it 5. See, that error goes out, but I cannot put more than 10. See, I'm typing, nothing is showing. I can reduce. If I reduce more than 5, less than 5, I can't submit. It will tell me that this must be 5. But if I put more than 10, I cannot even put more than 10. So I really want to use this to show you about minimum length and maximum length. Okay, let's proceed. One thing remaining here is the attribute known as name. Every form has this an attribute known as name. Every form has this name attribute. This name attribute is actually what we use to recognize each form, and each name must be unique, right? Each name must be unique. This name, now we name it a form that whenever we are submitting it, we start calling this form by their name. Yes, you must not really understand this attribute, but back-end developers are the ones who are supposed to understand this. So when you are learning PHP, Node, or any back-end programming language for submitting this data, you will not see the function of this attribute name. But I just want you to know that we have an attribute known as name, and that every form we have in HTML makes use of the name. Okay, I think we are going to stop here for now. This is the one for single line text and password. In our next video tutorial, we are moving to multi-line. Then we know that we have finished with anything text input. Then we move on with the other ones. Thank you so much for your time. If there are anywhere you don't understand, I suggest you scroll back again and watch this video. Thank you so much. Bye bye.